Erased Destiny. Chapter 2. The Barrel of Mushrooms. Jargon's parents abandoned the black, dominating their wardrobe for half a day. Jargon knew that it meant one thing only. Someone really important for their business was going to pay them a visit. He dressed up in a blue shirt and white trousers, a set specially made for such occasions. Clothes were uncomfortable, too small and somehow weird. Joanna noticed that they need to visit Taylor this month, as Jargon's weight had increased again.
You should do more exercise, son, and socialize more. Please, attend at least some evening parties with us.
Mother, you know that I hate such events.
It is not about your preferences, but duties and responsibilities. You are 13 years old. Someday you will take over our business. You need to get to know Sintra's high society.
Joanna paused because she saw the carriage. She took deep breath and calmed herself down. Jargon was nervously stamping his feet. Of all activities, he disliked entertaining children of his father's co-workers the most. Whenever business partners visited their house, Cyril would disappear into the attic. Joanna would organize housemaids, and Jargon would be assigned to keep company to the minors. Children of those business partners were usually much younger than Jargon, so they could be left in gazebo or in Malika's playroom. Jargon got used to drinking tea with dolls, repeating grandiloquent sentences that meant nothing, pushing kids on the swing. But this time, he had to face challenge of another kind.
Cyril, Joanna, you look great, as usual. Do you remember our daughter, Francesca?
How could we forget? Isn't she turning 19 this year?
Next year. Isn't she lovely? It's almost impossible to count gentlemen visiting our estate. Unfortunately, we have not found the perfect Prince Charming for her yet.
An auburn-haired with a bored expression and overly protruding cheekbones bowed to her hosts. The learned digression and the white dress excessively revealing breasts disgusted Jargon. He wanted to hide in his bedroom. Spending the afternoon with the doll frightened him.
Oh, she looks gorgeous. She certainly doesn't suffer from a lack of interest.
Don't you think Jargon should start socializing? In 12 days, he'll have a great opportunity to make his debut in front of the ladies.
Are you talking about a costume ball? What theme was chosen this time?
A dreamland. It is my favorite motive since childhood. Francesca dresses up as a fairy. Oh, we have bought such a beautiful costume for her. We had to wait more than 1 month for it to be prepared, but the end result is stunning. Can you imagine?
The adults disappeared up the stairs leading to the attic, and Jargon stayed on the ground floor with Francesca. He nodded and put his arm around the girl. He was a head shorter than her, so he was glad when she decided to move independently.
Do you dance well? Or play instruments?
Dancing is not my strongest point, but I can play on guitar.
Wonderful! Then play something for me.
Jargon felt like a servant in his own house. He obediently went to his bedroom to fetch the instrument. He hoped his father would quickly finish discussing important matters and relieve him of his visitor.
I know this piece. It's a flight over the forest, isn't it?
That's right.
Boring and so flat. I play it as a lullaby for my younger sister. Please play something more lively. It could be at the King's Visit, singing under the window, or Long Nights by the River. I will gladly join you and sing. Perhaps Moon Dance? Do you know that melody? It is so beautiful and charming.
Surprised by the criticism, which looked at first like a compliment, Jargon put down his guitar and wondered if he knew anything not boring. He had not heard of any of the pieces mentioned.
Oh, I see. Let's dance then. If you were so nice to call an orchestra.
Instead of admitting that they don't hire any musician, Jargon disappeared down the corridor. The maiden's attitude irritated him. He had no desire to spend time in her company and certainly no desire to serve her. On the stairs, he met his mother.
Miss asked for the orchestra.
Francesca is very musical. I heard her singing many times and was captivated by her performance. She could be a professional, but her parents don't like the idea. Did you play for her?
Yes, but she didn't like it. She said that I know only boring tunes and asked me to dance. You know, I hardly know any steps. What can I do?
Why don't you take Francesca for a walk? If she insists on dancing, I will gladly play on my lyre. You should practice social dancing before the costume ball and you won't find better teacher than Francesca. Yes, that is a splendid opportunity. Wait for me in the gazebo, please.
From the window of the mansion, Jargon noticed Merigold picking mushrooms just outside his fence. He was surprised to see her hiding the poisonous scones in a basket. He rested his forehead against the cool glass. He had never envied his friend as much as he did in that moment. Merigold has stopped her work to observe a dancing pair. Loud and rather strict comments of the unknown girl surprised her.
Oh, I didn't know you are still a minor. Please accept my apologies. In that case, I will go for a walk. I wouldn't like my feet to be damaged before the costume ball.
Could you try at least a bit harder? We won't be able to find you a suitable partner if you don't correct your attitude. Why did you stamp on Francesca's foot? You have ruined her shoe. Do you think that Francesca's bad impression of you helps your father in doing business?
Mother, you know that I cannot dance. It is not my fault.
Merigold went away from Cyril's estate. She was not interested in affairs of other people. She recorded that Jargon was still nothing more than a coward. It took Merigold 3 days to fill 4 baskets with mushrooms. It was too much for one medium-sized barrel, but Merigold was afraid that some of hats could be labeled as too big. On the 4th day, she headed toward Sintra at dawn. Her mother had knitted a waistcoat out of wool, which came in very handy on a chilly morning. The mushrooms weighed more than the flowers, so Merigold walked even slower than before. It was only before noon that she reached the dyer's hut.
Good morning. I brought mushrooms.
Great. Put the baskets next to the barrel.
The dyer quivered over each piece as if they were made of gold. He measured, looked at, assessed. Too dry, too big or squashed, he rejected. Merigold struggled to hold back her emotions. She felt like running away from the complaining man, but the vision of 12 copper coins held her in place. Finally, the dyer finished sorting.
Not enough. I'll pay you when the barrel is full. Just as we agreed.
The dyer pointed to the barrel that was 80% full. Merigold stifled her rage and left the city. She was gathering horseshoes in the surrounding woods until the evening, and just before the sunset she visited the dyer again. This was the 2nd time her harvest had been carefully assessed, but this time the discard was considerably less. This made the girl all the more surprised when she heard,
Not enough. See for yourself.
the barrel was half empty. Merigold looked at it for a minute or two. She couldn't believe that someone would cheat on her because of 12 coppers.
Please pay me.
Until the barrel is full, I don't owe you anything. Get lost, kid.
Merigold regretted not wielding magic, that she didn't have enough strength or magic power to retrieve the money owed to her. She reached the gate and was surprised to discover that it was locked. She moved along the walls. Her legs were sore after a whole day of walking, but she walked as fast as she could. She didn't want to spend the night on the streets. Unfortunately, all the gates were already closed and, as Merigold had been informed by the guard. They would be opened at 6 in the morning. Merigold took 2 copper coins out of her apron pocket. She didn't delude herself that it would be enough to pay for a night's lodging, but maybe for a place in the stables. She wandered around the town, but quickly lost orientation in the darkness. She didn't know how long she had been wandering the empty streets. A strong wind had discouraged the inhabitants from leaving their homes and, apart from drunks or guards, Merigold met no one on her way. Finally, she found the hill and on it the warrior's house. Hungry, exhausted and cold, she knocked on the door.
"Child, what is wrong? Why are you up at such late hour?"
Merigold told him about the dishonest dyer and the locked gates. Her clumsy fingers struggled to remove 2 coins from the pocket.
I don't have any more. Can I wait here until morning?
"Do you really think I could accept your money? Get in and warm yourself up. 12 coppers, right? Is that how much you were supposed to get?"
The warrior put on his black cloak, took his sword and left the house. Merigold looked around the room. Inside, there was the tidiness typical of a bachelor, only everyday objects laid within reach. Everything clean, although, as aged as the owner, Merigold sat down on the floor and rubbed her hands to warm them. Soon she laid down, too tired to worry. At dawn, Merigold found 12 coppers on the table and the warrior asleep in bed. For the first time, she had a chance to look at him more closely. His broad shoulders protruded from under the woolen blanket with which he had wrapped himself. Copper-colored hair grew not only over the man's head and face, but also over his chest. Merigold pressed her small hand against the warrior's large paw. Thicker skin full of bumps, bright marks from old scars, thickened finger joints, even the color of the inside of her hand. Everything was different between Merigold and Torden. Despite this, the girl felt familiar and safe around him. It was as if she had only dealt with soldiers since she was a child. She folded the blanket with which the warrior had covered her. She cleaned his boots, muddy from a night out. She looked around for something to do, and her gaze came upon a pile of dirty laundry. Quietly, the girl left the house and headed for the river with the laundry in her baskets. Walking past the dyer's hut, she curiously looked inside, but saw no one through the dirty glass. Instead, she noticed a broken barrel in front of the entrance and dots of blood on the step. She smiled and walked ahead. No one was doing laundry at this hour, but Merigold paid no heed to the surprised stares. The opinion of those around her interested her far less than Abella's. If she could, she wouldn't care at all about the opinion of others.
"A hard-working girl, eh?"
Good morning. I always get up early. Thank you for your help and for accommodation.
"I'll take you back to the village. I'm going to Jargon anyway. You are not the first one to be cheated here, which I regret. Not being paid for the work done is the worst meanness."
Torden carried the wet laundry home, and Merigold hung it up. They had meaty breakfast together, and Merigold felt like in a fairy tale. One of the worst days in her life changed into a very good one.
"I teach many of local kids, but those are wasted lessons. Kids are afraid of injury or effort, do not pay attention, do not practice. If someone has the time and money to learn, they have no desire to. A comfortable life makes them lazy."
And Jargon? How is he doing?
Jargon does not have the drift to fight. He runs away from confrontation. He sees fencing more as a sport than a necessary skill in life. Although he is not the worst of my students. If he tried a little harder, he could achieve something.
I wish I could learn swordsmanship too. Maybe if I find a job here, get paid for it and have enough food to eat. Would you mind training me?
Torden gifted her a wooden sword, similar to the one owned by Jargon. He showed her few exercises that she had to train on her own, and said that if she has got a talent for fighting, he would train her for free. Merigold sat on the back of the horse she often saw, and Torden sat behind her. They reached Merigold's house before Rose woke up for breakfast. Merigold said 2 sentences only.
I sold the mushrooms. I didn't know they closed the gates so early in the evening.
And she went to the riverbank to rest after a stressful and tiring day. She took her wooden sword with her with intention of practicing every single day. Raglan ran after Torden to thank him for bringing the girl home, but the warrior had disappeared behind the gate of Cyril's residence.